Hello and welcome back to another episode of Subjectively Correct, a podcast where two pals pick random subjects and present each other a movie according to that to discuss experiences and opinions. My name is Matt and I'm with my pal, Josh.
Hey, pal.
Hey, pal. Today, the randomly chosen subject is going to be crime/heist. That is how we put it on our notes of our random subject wheel. But spoiler alert, I think neither of our movies fit the heist part. This is just going to be a crime episode. We are a big fan of that stuff. Kind of a funny or interesting subject in itself, I guess. I think pretty much any story with an antagonist is gonna have some sort of crime in it. So what makes the crime genre special is, of course, the intentional focus on the crime and also probably the way it is resolved or investigated. So that
I think you have to have that focus on criminal activity or something like that for it to be appropriate.
Yeah.
Because just an antagonist isn't necessarily criminal. I know what you mean, like it's a conflict or whatever, but at the end of the day, crime is, I think, it's got to be about someone doing something illegal and potentially getting in trouble for it, or people trying to figure out what's happening, or, that kind of thing. And trying to solve the crime, I think, is a big part of crime genre movies, I suppose, or stories in that.
Yeah, often, but not necessarily, which is actually one of the points that I like because our two picks are different, are like opposites in that regard, as we follow the main characters. Crimes, a wrongdoing in the eye of the law, predominantly, and we have two different stories about that.
We do.
So, Josh, why don't we start with your little movie here?
Sure thing. So, I brought the film, which I'm guessing a lot of people might have heard of, but maybe not seen, or have seen and will agree that it's amazing, is the 2005 film Brick, which is an early film for director Rian Johnson, but also for its star, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's quite young in this film. And it's quite an indie, low-budgety kind of film. I think it still had a few $1 million budget, but that was like it. So it was pretty low rent in that sense, because it was kind of a passion project for Rian Johnson, the director. Directed by Rian Johnson, of course, who went on to do like Knives Out and Glass Onion. Also directed The Last Jedi, that Star Wars film. Directed Looper, the Bruce Willis sci-fi film. Hasn't got heaps of work under his belt, but, has some pretty big hitters. He also wrote Brick as well. He's quite, in a lot of his films, he does a bit of writing as well. So this one in particular, I feel like was kind of a passion project for him because he wrote it and directed it. It's very low budget. The composer who I want to give a shout out for is Nathan Johnson, his cousin, who went on to do other films as well. And this was kind of like them starting to get into the film industry, I suppose. They probably had stuff beforehand or whatever, but I think this is kind of one of their first big successes and very critically acclaimed movies. This is one of those kind of independent films that did really well at Sundance, I believe, and was highly critically acclaimed, but wasn't necessarily widely distributed at the time. So a lot of people might have missed it in cinemas or that sort of thing. I mentioned it stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt. The rest of the cast are pretty, they're people I don't know of, but I'll run through them. There's Emily de Ravin, Nora Zetner, Lucas Haas, a lot of German-sounding names, by the way. Noah Fleiss, Matt O'Leary, and Noah Segan. They're kind of the main cast. There's a bunch of others as well. Like this is there's a decent-sized cast in this one. But the whole film is, I think, really interesting because on one hand, it's a story about Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's a kid, like a teenager, who gets a call from his ex-girlfriend basically saying, she needs his help and something's gone wrong. And then she's missing, and he goes to solve and search and uncover the mystery behind what happened to her. And it leads him down this whole kind of pathway of like a criminal kind of underworld that exists. And he uncovers different things like that, and I'm sure we'll spoil it later on. But for now, I'll just give the overview. And but at the same time, it's all set in the high school, but it's got this very classic film noir detective kind of vibe to it, and it's really kind of surreal in parts and funny because you've got all these high school kids, essentially like these teenagers who are acting like, hard-boiled adult detectives or criminals or thugs or, the damsel in distress or the kind of black widow kind of female who takes advantage of you, or, there's like drugs involved. There's a kingpin of the crime syndicate, and, there's all this kind of stuff going on. And it's this, they really lean hard into the noir side of it all, which I think is why I really like it. Which is also then supported by, I think, an amazing soundtrack. That's also why I wanted to shout out Nathan Johnson, the composer. It's very unique, but it's also, I think, really good. And basically, the film is played straight, like it's entirely straight. It's not played for laughs, even though there are some really funny scenes in it, I think, especially because it's this mix of a bunch of teenagers who are acting like there's this huge criminal underworld at the high school, and there's all these double crosses, and there's all these people manipulating each other, and they're actually, dealing coke and stuff. And, there's this whole kind of different gangs against each other and all this kind of thing. And our star, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he's kind of like an outsider who gets into, as he investigates what happened to his ex-girlfriend, he kind of finds out that she'd been kind of moving through different groups around town and through the school and different gangs and stuff, and she'd kind of got mixed up in this whole criminal underworld, and that's what got her in trouble. And so he ends up getting smack bang in the middle of it and kind of starts, basically dismantling it from the inside as an outsider who no one really knows, and he's kind of new on the scene and all that kind of stuff. And it's just really cool. Like this film for me is like, and the story and everything is just like, oh man, it's just so cool. Like I love the way they've depicted things, how there's different gangs and there's different levels of the criminal hierarchy and all this kind of stuff. And like he's got a friend who he calls Brain, who's like this nerdy kid who does a lot of research and stuff at the library for him and things. But they kind of, the way they talk to each other, like the script is written really well, I think. And the dialogue is like really kind of gumshoe, hard-boiled detective noir tropes and things.
Yeah.
Which sounds weird coming out of a bunch of high school kids' mouths, but it kind of works in a way. And there's like the elitist rich kids who are kind of hedonistic and kind of live by their own rules and no one touches them. Even the faculty at the school, like the headmaster is kind of, he's almost like the paid off cop kind of character who gets told to look the other way kind of thing. And yeah, I just love this film. I love everything about it. To me, it's like amazing. And yeah, just like one of the most incredible and enticing kind of crime films that I've ever seen, I think. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. It's kind of hard to explain because of that theming with the kids, and then, but it's also the noir tropes, and yeah, but it kind of works as well, I think. So yeah, what do you reckon? What did you think, Matt, when you watched this film?
Yeah, I'm right off the bat, I'm a bit unsure about this film, so I'm actually kind of curious if our conversation is gonna make me lean more in one direction or the other. I think my first impressions honestly were because of this noir style at a high school setting. This might be a bit after your time, but there was a show, a cartoon called Disney's Fillmore, which I loved back in the day, which was legit just a noir style crime series at a high school. And this gave me very much similar vibes. So I was in there for the presentation. I was into that. But I have also I have some problems with the film where I'm unsure if it's a me thing or maybe justified criticisms or whatever. I felt for one that probably because it is so much into the gumshoe detective noir style, the dialogue, as you said, is very crafty. It is very much the kind of dialogue that is uh, a lot of information in little words. I feel it's very focused. It's very calculated dialogue, and that paired with, I think, this sort of fly on the wall perspective, I felt like the main character was very closed off from me as the audience. Like I couldn't really get into his inner workings. Maybe that's a me thing.
Yeah.
But I kind of felt what's the word? A not disconnect, but like there was a barrier there where I couldn't like really follow his footsteps that well. And add to that he's kind of like the stoic Superman type, where he just goes into troubling situations with almost no care in the world and doesn't give a shit about getting beaten up or whatever, and he just knows he can deal with it and get what he wants no matter what, which kind of deflated the stakes for me in a lot of scenes, even though the characters involved are essentially very interesting. As you said, like the whole different gangs and groups, they are pretty colorful. They are interesting. There's a world here that could definitely be explored to, you know, very much to a length more than this film even makes out of it, I feel.
Yeah. But I like how they don't trip over themselves trying to explain all of that to you as well. It just kind of gets presented.
True, that's fair, yeah. Yeah, usually I'm very much into the passive fly on the wall perspective anyway. But I feel like in this case, where it was so character focused, where you're following this guy so closely, I feel like a bit of a look into the inner minds maybe would have helped me at least. Felt all a bit cold. But there's also the thing, because of this noir and high school clashing, and I think you said it all as well, with some of the more, I want to say, eccentric presentation at points. There's definitely an art style to it. It gave me sometimes a bit of like a high school Twin Peaks vibe, which is a good thing. Maybe I'm also just exaggerating there, but to me, some scenes felt like Twin Peaks with the strange vibe and the crime story.
Yeah.
Some of the shots were really cool though. There's some prominent shots of a storm drain tunnel and whatever that are really fucking cool. Other more, again, eccentric shots, like one where the main character gets almost run down by a car, were a bit on the edge for me in terms of, is this cool or is this ridiculous, a bit too far? But again, dancing on that edge itself is a kind of style that can work, and I get.
Well, I think, again, kind of going back to that noir kind of tropes and stuff, there's a little bit of melodrama there, which does kind of, it is a bit, I guess, surreal or over the top at times.
Yeah.
Because it is, or like, there's one part I'm thinking of where Brandon, the main character, he is pretty stoic for most of the thing, but then there's one where he's like, he kind of goes off and he's like, I'm already in it too far and I can't get out. I've got to go all the way. And even that's a bit over the top, I think, for him. But but that's kind of leaning in, I think, into that kind of that full melodrama, like that detective tropes kind of, it's sticking genreified in that sense, I think.
That's what I mean. I'm very sure all of these things are conscious decisions made by the filmmaker. These are not like any like mistakes or whatever. That's why I think it's probably just a cup of tea thing on my end.
Yeah.
And I still respect clearly there was a clear vision for the story, and that I respect. You can very much see that from watching the film. I also wonder though, you have probably watched this multiple times at this point, right?
Yeah.
Have you I feel like this is probably the kind of movie where you appreciate it more the more you watch it. I have a feeling that's...
I can definitely see how it could be.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I loved it from the first time I saw it, and I've rewatched it many times, yeah. So now it's kind of like I know it back to front, because it's one of my favorite films, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can appreciate that. Because it's very dialogue heavy, it's very information heavy. it's also written in a very much a stylistic kind of way. So sometimes it's kind of hard to understand, well, who is this character and what are they actually talking about? Because there's a lot of suggestive discussions and stuff without actually just blatantly saying what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So I can see how, on a first watch, it might be a bit, not confusing, but like a bit, you might lose it a bit along the way or something, or it's just hard to follow. Because it is kind of, dialogue dense and they are speaking in ways that are not, quote unquote natural, I guess, because it's very much written and it's very in a style. So that can kind of be hard to follow because you're trying to, capture the style as well as understand what's happening as well. And there's a lot of names and there's a lot of different characters and there's a lot of different pieces on the board.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of part of it though as well, because it's that kind of crime movie where, again, the lead character is trying to get to the bottom of it all, and it is meant to be a bit confusing, I think, because there's so many different things happening at the same time that it's hard to kind of get to the reality of it and what actually is going on. And there's a few people, there's different suspects along the way who seem like they might be guilty of basically what happened to his ex-girlfriend, or there's other people who show up and then he thinks, oh, maybe they're guilty because all the evidence kind of points to them, but then you realize that's not them and, all this kind of stuff. So I think it's almost intentional in that sense as well. Like you say, the whole thing seems intentional.
Yeah.
But I think the confusion is probably a bit intentional on the first watch at least, because there is a lot going on and there's a lot to keep track of and probably too much for anyone to really get a huge 100% grasp on it first time around. But it's more for the vibes, I think, in that sense. And it plays to the genre a lot, as I said.
The confusion might be intentional. That's actually an interesting way to put that. Maybe that was my problem then, because I did have, of course, struggles with keeping who is who and what do they do. A lot of stoic people talking to each other like they know each other's deepest secrets, where you are just looking from the outside in. I have trouble with that. But again, I do feel multiple watches would definitely make that better. Yeah.
What did you think of the more like comedic parts of it? Like when he gets picked up in that van and he meets the kingpin for the first time.
Yeah,
and he's there, like in the back of the van with like a cane and a lamp, and
that's pretty much the parts that kind of made me feel. That kind of made it feel Twin Peaksy at points, because Twin Peaks has a lot of quirky characters going around, and Brick kind of plays with that as well. The big drug kingpin in his, I guess you could say, gothic outfit, almost like, British gothic, not 80s goth. With his cane and everything
going on.
Yeah. Sitting at the mother's dining table and him having a cookie and whatever. No, that's good stuff. I did enjoy that a lot. It's a good clashing of the setting and the genre for sure.
Yeah. I just love how they literally are high school kids. Like you say, there's a point where he's sitting there with the kingpin of this actual drug network and an underground criminal organization. But they're at his mum's kitchen table and his mum's just like, hey, do you guys want some orange juice? Or some cereal or something? And it's just total bullshit high school teenager crap. But they're playing it so straight as well. Like, this is serious business.
It's true, yeah. That's true.
And I love that kind of contrast. It throws a bit of a bone in there to kind of let you laugh and not take it so seriously all the time.
No, I do like that as well. But what I didn't like, though, big criticism here, huge criticism. The brain character in a very early scene carries a Rubik's Cube. And they do some weird editing to make it seem like he's solving it or whatever, but it's complete bullshit. And I'm very disappointed in that. There was no actual Rubik's Cube. Clearly, those people don't know how to solve that thing. Very unfortunate.
Well, I don't know how to solve a Rubik's Cube, so it worked on me, I guess.
if at least presented in a realistic way, where somebody who knows how to solve it can't tell it's faked, but this one didn't even try. And I give a movie, this is a complete another like sidestep on of anything that matters. But I honestly, every movie that has a Rubik's Cube and actually has the character solve it for real is a huge plus for me in authenticity and effort.
I think that's true for like any kind of talent you have that is not 100% accessible to everybody. Like it takes practice or whatever. Not saying it's not accessible, because I believe anyone can do anything if you practice it or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But for me, it's like playing musical instruments. Like I can play the guitar, and they, 9 out of 10 movies where someone plays a guitar, they're not actually playing it, and you can tell 100% by looking at it. Even dumb things like, because I used to be a smoker, the amount of times when people smoke in the screen, and you can tell they're not really smoking, like they're just pretending to, and you can actually tell, and it looks ridiculous if you know what people who actually are smoking look like, because it looks all fake, and you think, well, what's the point? Like, most of the time it's not important for that character to smoke a cigarette, like it's
cool.
Why are they doing
it? Smoking is
but that's
cool.
The thing. And that just kind of makes the whole thing a bit cringe. It's like, okay, why are you pretending here? Like, you could do without it and still do a good film, Like,
yeah, that's how I feel about this.
I appreciate that kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah.
And fortunately, I'm not Rubik's Cube aware enough to for it to ruin it for me.
Yeah, well, I got my eyes peeled for that shit. Yeah, it's a clever movie, I think. That was the debut film of that, like the major debut of Rian Johnson, you said, I think.
I think so. I don't want to, I'm not 100% certain, but I feel like that's something
as far as feature length films,
I think even
go,
Joseph Gordon-Levitt,
right.
I think it's one of his first ones too.
Yeah, probably. Man, I love the guy. He rules.
Oh no, he did a bunch of TV shows and stuff before that.
But yeah, I feel like there's a kind of like a cliche or whatever with early independent films of fresh filmmakers. This very much feels like one of those creations where okay, this guy's gonna do bigger things. The focus is so clear.
I think there's some
so good.
Some real creativity and kind of the craft of filmmaking without sounding like too much of a wanker. Like, I feel like that comes across in these sorts of films. Like, there are people, you can tell it's made by people who want to think about the dialogue, and they want to think about the framing of each scene and the pacing and the editing and all that kind of stuff. It's all done very deliberately. Whether it works or not, obviously, is a different thing, because, well, you and I have got different views on it. But I think, as you said before as well, it is all very deliberate, and it does seem very thought out, for better or worse, And so I think you can see that, yes, this is a team of people who are they care about what they're doing, and they're trying to at least work hard and do something a little bit different and unique, even if it, follows tropes and genres and that sort of thing.
And I think that's exactly why I'm so unsure where I stand on this, because I very much see and realize and appreciate the effort that went into the craft. I guess just the film is not, at least on this first watch, not entirely hitting my taste buds the right way. So I'm in between that then. The personal enjoyment and the
What did you think about the soundtrack from your perspective?
I'm sorry, but I can't actually say anything specific. I don't think it struck me as anything big. What was it?
Yeah. There are a few like themes here and there that kind of repeated themselves throughout. Like, there's an original score for most of the film. And it's kind of it's a bit jazzy, it's a bit but not, it's a bit like, again, it kind of falls into that detective noir kind of soundtrack theme again. Like, it uses those sorts of instruments and that sort of, phrasing and all that kind of stuff. And for me, I flipping love it. But again, while you're trying to pay attention to everything else that's going on, maybe it wouldn't sink in so hard on the first watch, I suppose.
Yeah, it's probably my problem. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, maybe on my rewatch I will be able to say something about that.
Yeah. Well, and I think I'd be interested. Do you think you would rewatch this?
I actually think the chances are pretty high, because I do generally have the feeling that there's more here that I could get out of it.
Yeah, Because I do think, and you bring it up kind of made me think about it a bit more, but I do think, it is one of those films that you can rewatch a number of times without it being repetitive or
I could see that.
Just boring. I think there are bits and pieces that you can pick up here and there, and maybe little lines of dialogue that you didn't hear the first time around and that kind of stuff.
No, I'm sure there's also in the presentation some stuff hidden or whatever that you wouldn't catch the first time.
Being intimately familiar with it as I am, I think that every kind of shot is that thought out and purposeful.
Yeah, I could see that.
and every scene is kind of playing its part in the story, if you want to call it that. So yeah. And there's some really interesting choices, I think, along the way when it comes to like filmmaking and pacing, especially. And
Yeah.
Cool. So, I'm happy with your assessment. I think that's
it's good. That makes me feel good.
Yeah, I'm of course I am in love with this film, and I appreciate that. But I think for anyone who's listening who doesn't know this movie, like we tell you early so that maybe you'd watch the movie before listening to the podcast. But if you don't know it, I reckon watching the trailer is actually a really good way to get the vibe of the film, at least. Because I rewatched the trailer again just before we recorded this. And it does kind of convey the whole shtick, if you want to call it that. It might not tell you much about the story, but it kind of, it conveys all of those things we're talking about, where it's, a bunch of students who are in high school, but there's like this criminal underworld. There's a lot of characters in play. There's a lot of, twists and turns and red herrings and, all that kind of stuff. And I think if you wanted to get the vibe, the trailer is actually a really good one for that on this film.
Yeah, I did watch that too. That is it very much brings across the style of it, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's pretty obvious what kind of score I would give this movie, but I guess any final thoughts and or number that you could give this?
Well, the final thoughts, again, there's a good chance I'm going to rewatch this and the number might rise. For now, I think a fair number for me feels like a 7 out of 10 because I do appreciate the craft that went in there. I see that there was passion and a focus, and I like that. And you're probably going to be a full 10 out of 10?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is like, I mean, some of my favorite films are kind of in this vein, like independent films that are very focused on how they're written and how they're executed as well. And I feel like this is another one of those. And I love it. I don't think I would change anything about it, to be honest. And so that for me means it's pretty perfect.
Was it a 10 out of 10 on your first watch?
I think so.
Okay.
I think I've always loved it. Like since I first watched it, I was like, man, this is awesome.
Okay.
Even though, I think obviously I didn't understand it as deeply the first time around because, it's that first blush of what you're seeing. There's definitely a lot on offer, I think, if you do want to go back to it. Which, just as an aside, I will say that that's not a reason to love a film, that you have to rewatch it.
No, yeah.
I kind of roll my eyes if anyone says that to me, like, oh, I'm like, I didn't really get into it. And like, oh, you just got to watch it 5 times and then you'll get it. I'm like, well, that's shit. So I don't think you have to watch it 5 times to get it or enjoy it. But I think there's enough there that if you do rewatch it, there's little things that you can pick up on along the way that kind of just enrich it a bit more.
Yeah, that's exactly my impression as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
And I do like a bit of Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh, yeah.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Always, man. Love the guy. All right. So that was a deep dive into organized crime. And now we are moving on to less organized crime and also from a completely different point of view with my film. I have brought another German creation for the subtitle lovers of the international world. It is called Der Goldene Handschuh, aka The Golden Glove, released in 2019. Directed by Fatih Akin, who also wrote the script, starring a bunch of Germans, including Jonas Dassler, Margarete Thiesel, Martina Eitner-Achiampong, Greta Sophie Schmidt, Tristan Goebel, and Mark Hosemann, who coincidentally actually was in my pick of the last episode as well. I realized Mark Hosemann has a
I saw you'd noted that.
Yeah. Mark Hosemann.
I can't remember who he was in that, though.
In A Coffee in Berlin, he was Matze, who was the friend of the protagonist that drove him around town.
Oh, I remember now. Yeah.
And here he shows up for one sequence as the brother of the main character. But first, the plot, it revolves around the story of a true crime. In the 70s in Hamburg, Germany, there was a serial killer going around called Fritz Honka. And in this film, we follow this Fritz Honka as the main character, and we see his ups and downs, I guess, from his regular slicing and dicing of his victims that he picks up at a grimy bar called the Golden Glove. That's where the title comes from. Even to a sort of attempted cleaning up of his life as he goes sober from his alcoholism and gets a new job for a new start, etc. And of course, spoiler alert, the eventual second downfall back to his old ways. That's the story that we follow. It is an incredibly stinky and grimy film. Very much another fly on the wall perspective. And there's lots of flies in this man's apartment. As he was known for hiding sliced up body parts in the crevices of his roof, under the roof apartment. Lots of little places to hide those, and it was known for stinking up the building for the neighbors, all of that stuff. And I think this film actually, the fly on the wall perspective, I think, is a huge part of the story, and I love that as you just watch this guy do his thing in long, unbroken sequences, many of which do not have any dialogue, and it all adds to the realness and the grime of these actions that have happened for real as well. I think this movie is very, there was definitely an attempt and a focus on representing the real story fairly authentically, even down to the cast of the victims looking very similar to the actual people. And the performances are all amazing. I think the presentation of the fly on the wall stuff and the performances of the individual people are what makes this movie so great to me. The main character playing the really reclusive, kind of lost man, just following his own primeval urges into alcoholism and sex and murder, is represented so well by Jonas Dassler, the actor. I think it's really one of those cases. I mean, I'm not too familiar with this actor, but it seems to me from the little other stuff that I've seen around this film that it really is one of those performances where the character, the actor disappears in the character. It's very, very strong. And also, I always the man, the killer, kind of stands in the spotlight for the story, but I think a lot of or maybe even all of the victims, or the characters, the victims, which are all women, those actresses kind of make the movie because they have some of the most interesting characters and some of the most interesting performances, especially later on when one or two actually fight back as well or try to cope in different ways with the weird situation they are in, because all of them are desperate as well, trying to find a spot in life, which I think goes both for the victims and the main protagonist. And it's just interesting to see these different characters clash in a way. And of course, the set dressing with lots of poop and blood and grime and bugs, and it's so dirty. It's so fucking good. God, I love that shit, obviously. It's a great film. I think when it comes to films coming out of Germany, I've plenty of times I said that German cinema is not one that I love, is not one that I care much for. I feel like this is truly one of the like best showcases of recent German cinema, where actually craft and passion and whatever went into something that is worthwhile talking about and showing. This is one of the best films I have seen coming from my own country. And with that,
Damn.
I'm super, super curious to see what you, subtitle reader, are thinking about this.
Yeah. This is a hard one for me to think about, really, for reasons which I hope to express in one way or another. Mostly because I think you did mention it when you first told me about this film, that it was based on like a true story or a true crime story. But when I watched it, I'd kind of forgotten that. And I wasn't sure, like 2/3 of the way in, I was like, oh, I wonder if this is on a true thing or not. And then obviously I looked it up, and yes, I found out that it is. Although interestingly, when I looked it up, it was listed as it's based on a book, which is based on the true story.
Yeah, true.
So it's kind of like twice removed. However, just to touch on what you said about the set dressing and all, and getting people to look the same and all that, I love it when it's a true story or based on a true story, and in the credits they give you like real footage of the people and the places and all that kind of thing. And what I thought was really cool, how they showed you photographs of his actual apartment, and it looked basically exactly the same as the one that they made for the movie. And that was great because the apartment itself is essentially, I know this is kind of cheesy to say, but it's essentially a main character in the whole film. Because, as you say, it's so dirty and it's so fucking foul, and they always the characters repeat throughout that it really stinks in there. And even watching the film, you start to kind of feel like you can smell it a bit because it's that visceral and that well portrayed. That there's these rotting kind of bodies in the walls of his apartment that are just stinking the whole place up, and you can imagine the maggots and everything, and not to mention his own filth and just state of the apartment anyway. It's not just the rotting bodies that are stinking it up. I'm sure there's just dirt and filth and shit and everything everywhere. It's just it. They captured that quite well, I thought, or what I imagine they were referring to anyway. And the second thing, I guess, that you said that I thought I really agree with is the performance of the lead character, or the lead actor, I should say. He was amazing and did a fantastic job. And I obviously have not seen other films that he's in, because he's a German actor, and I don't recognize him from the limited German films I've seen. Even looking at his photo on like IMDb or on Plex and that kind of thing, he doesn't look like the main character at all in his like regular day, the real guy kind of photos. And that's cool. And he did such a great job. It's the kind of character as well who I imagine is a lot of fun to play, because he has very distinct characteristics physically about himself. And like he's referred to as disfigured, and he's got a bit of a hunch, and the way he walks and talks and acts and, conducts himself is very interesting, I guess, and very kind of strange in its own way. So as far as the performance goes, the lead actor was just phenomenal, and everyone else was good too. But he basically carried the whole thing, because that's what you're watching the whole time, isn't it? So hats off to him. The thing that kind of makes me pause though, and makes me think about whether it's true or not, is because before I knew or had confirmed that it was based on a true story, I was feeling like a lot of the content felt a bit, I guess, gratuitous in a lot of ways. And by that, I mean kind of extreme without meaning or purpose. And it just seemed like, very fly on the wall, slice of lifey kind of thing, of just a despicable person who's obviously killing people and whatever. But not only is he killing people, you could almost remove that and he would be just as despicable, really, because of the way he treats people and because of his alcohol. I don't know if I want to blame his alcoholism, because he's kind of messed up anyway. But he has obviously a lot of issues, and very few redeemable qualities, if any. I don't know if I could find any. This is just a horrible person in every single way. And yeah, initially, I think for the first half of the film at least, I felt like I couldn't quite grasp the point, like what the story was trying to tell me. Knowing that it's a true crime story kind of does a lot of that heavy lifting, because obviously the point is that they're showing you the story of this person who actually existed, and this is what he actually did. And therein is the kind of interesting part of it, kind of thing. But when it's potentially a fictional story, I'm watching it thinking, well, what am I getting? What's the point here? Are they just trying to gross me out? Is it just gratuitous crap, that is kind of extreme and over the top? But I don't quite get the point in that sense. And so that kind of put me off a little bit. But as I say, in hindsight, and after I figured out that, yes, it probably was a true story, that does do a lot of the heavy lifting, because, when something's true, you can kind of forgive it for perhaps being a bit pointless, or being a bit, like, as in the story and the depiction being a bit gratuitous or whatever, because at least you hope that it's accurate, because that unauthentic, because that kind of takes the place then of it being kind of purposeful and meaningful. And, you can kind of accept it, because obviously you're watching a film about this person who actually existed. So if his life was just like that, then fair enough. And I guess the other thing that I found interesting was, and this is a compliment as well, but as disgusting as a lot of the behavior was, and as I guess anyone with empathy, I guess, would feel something for these women who are obviously in a tough spot anyway that he takes advantage of, because it's not like he charms them or anything. He's not like like a Charles Manson character or someone who will just kind of smooth his way in. He's a disgusting guy who treats people terribly, but they're so desperate that when he says, yeah, I'll give you some booze, they're like, sure, I'll do whatever, and you can beat me up and, whatever. But I'm that tied to that kind of addiction or whatever that I need to, just accept this kind of shit. And in that sense, that felt very true to me as well, because, and I don't want this to sound weird, but those sorts of characters, I've kind of met those people before, because I used to do some volunteer work, and I spent some time around a homeless shelter, not a shelter, but like a homeless services mob here in my hometown. And a lot of the characters I met who did have drug and alcohol problems and were, obviously didn't have much money and were on the streets and that kind of thing. Part of their difficulty was this kind of lifestyle where people would take advantage of them, or they would get treated badly, or they would make bad decisions based on addictions as opposed to needs and all that kind of stuff. So in that sense, these women that he picked up at the bar kind of, to me, fit that kind of mold where, yeah, they were getting drunk at a bar, but they were effectively in the same ballpark of kind of homeless people with substance abuse problems or mental illness problems, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I did feel for them in that sense, and kind of some of it vibed very, very true, I guess, with some of the nastier sides of that kind of life, I suppose, for want of a better word. And yeah, that was really interesting, because I think you could see just how desperate some of these women were, or how far gone they were, that they didn't have any kind of self-preservation or self-awareness, or any kind of self-respect even, or that kind of thing. And they obviously need a lot of help in different ways. And this guy just obviously took advantage of them, which I thought was one thing. Well, one question for you before I get too ranty is one thing I didn't quite get in the film was the purpose of the young couple who showed up every now and then. Other than there being this young, beautiful girl that he gets obsessed with as, oh, she's so beautiful, she's like an angel, rah, rah, rah. But then there's like this other kid that she's in school with, who they kind of hang out, and they end up going to the bar and, having their own little rough experience or whatever. But the paths never really cross in that sense. Like they almost do and they, mildly do, but it doesn't ever have like a payoff for those two. So I wonder if that's like another true part of the story, or if that in particular felt to me like a bit of a fiction that was weaved in to kind of add another color to his character kind of thing.
That I've wondered as well. Yeah, that is like a very passive B story, it seems. Yeah, the overlap is minimal. Yeah, I would assume as well that it was probably a fictional addition to the book, probably, and then it was just adapted to the movie. I don't think it was necessary either. I think it makes for a couple funny scenes. I love the toilet scene when the boy gets pissed on. It's so stupid, but it's kind of one of the more memorable scenes to me as well. But yeah, no, I'm honestly
I think that's interesting because those other characters in the bar who are basically just as messed up and mental and colorful, I suppose, as our main character. I think that scene in the toilet especially kind of highlighted that, because it's one of the other characters who basically ends up pissing on some other dude, kind of intimidate him and everything. and it sounds funny, but it's pretty I guess it is intimidating, I suppose.
Oh yeah.
And they've all got kind of the same, like they all talk about the same things. They're all friends. They're all on the piss and talking about women they've slept with who they may or may not have, or, just that kind of banter all together. And, our lead character Fritz is part of that too, except he's actually picking up homeless women and taking them home and doing bad things to them. I think I struggle because I guess the whole story seems kind of odd as a story that you'd tell. If you were writing this story, you wouldn't tell it in that way. Not that you can't or you shouldn't or anything like that. Like obviously you can do what you want, but that's what I felt a bit of a disconnect with the story, as in it did feel very gratuitous in parts without any kind of reason or any kind of thing behind it. And it's not like I need some big payoff or like I need some kind of big resolution or anything like that, or even just a reason for his actions. Like I don't need any of that. That's cool. I'm happy to just have that slice of life thing without a clear beginning or end. Yeah, I think there was something in the storytelling which just left me feeling a bit unsatisfied. And I'm not sure if it is purely because of that true calmness of it, where, hey, this is accurate, but maybe it's not the most interesting story. Just because it's being accurate doesn't mean they're not all probably winners. That's okay, though. I can respect that as far as the accuracy and that kind of thing. And like I said, going back to the photos and stuff that they showed during the credits of the actual people and the actual environment and the actual apartment that he was in and that sort of thing, it obviously they made it as authentic as they possibly could, because I think there was even a photo of one of the victims, and I was like,
yeah,
why are they showing a photo of the actress? Like,
yeah, right. It's really close. Yeah,
because they got them to look so much like the people they were portraying, and that's great. That's fucking awesome. I love that. So it's a bit of a mixed bag for me in that sense. And I guess my other question to you, as as a German, is this like a famous case in Germany or something?
I do believe so. Yeah, I think among the national crimes in the recent decades, I think this is one that is more known for sure. Yeah, this film won awards. The book won awards. Like, this is a pretty big story, I think.
Yeah, cool. Because I think that obviously would have something to do with it too. Because I don't know if this is a random question to ask you all of a sudden, but have you heard of the Snowtown murders?
Snowtown murders? No.
Yeah.
No.
Barrels in the bank.
I don't know. I don't think so.
No.
Maybe.
No. The reason I asked that is because that's like one of the biggest serial killer, or if not the only, cases that's happened in my neck of the woods. So. And so there's been movies made about it. There's been books written about it. It's a very big thing for Australians, especially South Australians, which is the state that I live in. The Snowtown murders were like a big thing that happened. And it happened maybe 30, 40 years ago now. but it's still a very memorable big thing that is in our culture and part of our history. I don't expect many places outside of Australia have even heard of it, let alone give a shit, and that's fine. But but that's what I was thinking. Maybe there's something like that going on here as well, where if you've grown up in Germany and already always known about this, then maybe it would have a different impact on you as well from a cultural perspective. But whereas to me it's completely brand new.
I wouldn't say this crime is like a household name or whatever, but I think, when people talk about bigger German serial killer stories or whatever, it's probably kind of on top of the list, that sort of thing. I'm trying to think actually if when I saw this film the first time, if I knew this was based on a true story. I'm not sure about that. But I think for me, like I get, you said that the true crime-ness, the based on a true story kind stuff gives this more of a purpose. But I do think like for me, what makes it so appealing is in how it is such an interesting character study of like the underbelly of society or whatever, with not only the main character, but as you said, also the other barflies that all struggle in life. And to me, it does seem like a pretty like authentic representation of those kinds of people, at least in a lot of ways. I think that is a major part of the appeal to me. Plus, one of the characters says in the movie, I don't know how it was translated through the subtitles or whatever, but something along the lines of laughing and throwing up both are next to each other in the throat. And I think that sentiment kind of describes this movie perfectly, because while it is so vile and disgusting and despicable, there's also humor in a lot of places here. And I think the exploration of that sense is a big part of this film that makes this so intriguing as well, at least from my point of view.
That's interesting. If you asked me if there was any funny moments, I would have said no.
I think weird assholes can say funny things in an absurd way, and I think that happens here a lot of the times. He might kill people in awful ways, but the way he goes around it, for example, is very comedic sometimes in a dark way.
Yeah, so again, maybe that's just like a taste thing, because to me, there was nothing about the main character that was amusing at all. Like, he was just reprehensible from start to finish, which is fine. That's okay. I don't need characters to be likable. It kind of shits me when people say, I didn't like the movie because the main character was someone I didn't like.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't matter. But, and that's what I mean. He was a very interesting character in that sense, as far as very well portrayed and very extreme in a lot of ways. And, I feel like he had that kind of interesting depth to him.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like he ever did anything other than be completely reprehensible about everything. So, I don't know. That might be just a taste thing, though, like we said.
Maybe, yeah. I do think that was a somewhat of an intention, though. Also, the reactions from the neighbors, just the stupid chauvinistic bullshit they talk about and whatever. I think there's an intention to laugh at that nonsense at points.
Right.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah. No, but like I say, like I think it is. I think that's why I struggle with it a bit, because I know I've already said it, but like, seeing it in the light of being an authentic portrayal of a true thing that happened and true characters changes my perspective on it completely to it being just a film about a serial killer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's for the better or worse necessarily, because again, like I said, I don't want to sound like I've got these expectations that have to be filled. Like, I need more backstory about why is he a killer. I don't need anything like that shit.
Yeah.
I'm happy with the story as it was told. I just feel like there was probably a good, especially in the beginning, probably like the first act or something, felt very, very just gratuitous, like no real point to it. Even setting up his character and everything, like he was set up pretty quickly in the first scene, because it starts with one of his kills, and that kind of sets him up perfectly. And I didn't need much more than that, I guess. But then it kind of went on a bit with his reprehensibility. or dislikability or whatever you want, whatever it is. So yeah, I think that's the bit that kind of lost it for me. But I say that amongst the fact that yes, there was a lot of things that I liked and respected about what they did in this film, and especially down to the characterizations and the acting and the portrayals and how they did kind of go and lean into how disgusting a lot of it was. And like I say, I love this in books and movies and stuff where even though you literally can't, you feel like you can smell the environment.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like one of my favorite books is a book called Last Exit to Brooklyn by Hubert Selby Jr. And that book, the way it's written, it is a noisy book. That's the way I describe it. Like, it is loud and it is confusing, and it's just noisy because of the way it's written. And obviously it's not making any noise. It's just words on a page. Much like this one. Obviously I can't smell it. It's a movie.
Yeah.
However, they've done such a good job of making me feel like this is a stinky, dirty, disgusting movie, or environment, I should say. And I feel like he stank as well the whole time. And yeah, it was just nasty. But that's kind of cool because they did such a good job of portraying that, you know?
Yeah. And there's at some point, like somewhere in the scene in the background, there's a radio that says the hottest day of the year is coming up. And I was just like, oh boy, that apartment is gonna stink, bro. Fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I know what you mean. Very visceral, yeah.
And yeah, they did such a good job with that. And, you know, that's not an easy thing to do. So, but it was obviously part of the whole thing with this guy where he obviously didn't care because he was living in it, or he'd gotten used to it or whatever. And he acted so disgustingly so much with other people that it seemed like, well, you know, that fits the character. You know, he wasn't like a slick, you know, clean up after himself kind of killer. He was just kind of
a bumbling
going day by day and not really making good decisions ever. So yeah, it was good in that sense.
Yeah,
I liked it. It was worth a watch, and it was very good from a filmmaking perspective and stuff. There were just a few little bits where I was like, I'm not sure how hard that lands for me.
Dope, yeah. I have a feeling I know where your number rating is gonna go, but yeah, go ahead, give it to me.
I mean, it might be a bit higher than you think, actually, because I would probably give this like a 4 out of 5.
Oh yeah,
and an 8 out of 10.
Oh yeah,
because like I say, it's more for how well it's made and the acting and everything. Like, yeah, the story lost me a couple of points, but everything else was done so solidly that I feel like it was definitely worth a good rating. So.
Yeah, I can respect that.
How about you? Where do you sit with this one?
Yeah, my rating on my first watch was that as well, 4 out of 5. I think I'm gonna raise it to a 9 out of 10 or whatever, 4.5 out of 5, whatever you want to use. Yeah, I'm learning to really love this movie for its craft, whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what I mean. There's a lot of heavy lifting done by the fact that this is true. And the accuracy of it all, like you said, like even in the photos, there were photos of like his living room and stuff of his apartment, and it looked exactly the same as the film set, which, you know, commending them for putting in all that effort, because it wasn't like an easy film set to make either, like, but they nailed it. So
from what I've read, when the book was written, it was like the author got, for the first time ever, public access to the official files from the police or whatever to this case. And I'm assuming the movie then also, of course, had access to them, and that was a big deal. So yeah, it makes sense that they focused on the accuracy.
Well, I think that they made a point of showing photos of his apartment as well, I think, rather than just the characters. Like a lot of these sorts of films, you'll just see photos of the characters. Like, this is the real guy. That's what he looks like. How about that? Cool, move on. But they made a point of showing like a series of photographs of his attic that he lived in. Even they had, like, I assume it was from the court case, where they had like diagrams of the building and where bodies were hidden in the walls and all that kind of stuff. Like, that was really cool to see that.
Yeah, I love that.
So yeah, that's really cool that they got to include that stuff in there and let it inform the set and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
There was two crime stories. Yeah. No, I enjoyed this. 2 good picks, I would say.
Yeah.
And very
I'd
different
say
one
so.
again.
Yeah.
Very different ones.
And like I said, I love that in the last couple of weeks, we've had a couple of German movies because I haven't seen heaps of German cinema. So, I'm not super familiar with it. Not that I'm basing it on these 2 films, but it's nice to see more.
Yeah, I'm happy when I have the rare chance to actually recommend a German movie to somebody that I actually stand behind. Doesn't happen too often. So yeah, I enjoyed your opinions on this as well. Now, as we're going forward to reveal the next subject, I can already say I'm not gonna make you watch another German movie, but you will be reading subtitles again. So,
all right.
Next randomly chosen subject is gonna be Gothic, which now we have talked about this off mic, but maybe we should talk a little bit about that on mic as well, because Gothic is a term that's very broad and can mean very different things.
I mean, yes and no, but go on.
I think it's a bit nebulous, and I think the lines waver a bit between things. I guess Wikipedia itself says something like originally a literally aesthetic of fear and haunting, which I guess is a good thing to clamor onto. And I have a feeling that's what we are both going to be focusing on mostly, that sort of thing. Shall I reveal my film? So,
well, just before we get there, on Gothic itself, so I studied literature at uni, and Gothic classic literature was like one of my favorite subjects, and is one of my favorite genres of writing and books and eras of books and everything. So in my mind, that's kind of where I'm coming from, and that is a very specific thing.
Yeah.
It's not broad at all.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But I understand that in the film world it is a bit different because
exactly.
Often Gothic gets just mixed in with horror. I don't think that's as clean a overlap as a lot of people might, because there's a lot of Gothic, especially classic works of Gothic literature, that are very subtle in their eeriness, for want of a better word. And eerie is probably a better word than being scary or horrific. There's an unsettling kind of nature to Gothic literature. It's more about the flaws in the human condition than it is about scary ghosts and things, even though it may involve ghosts and that sort of stuff and supernatural things all the time. Like one of the most classic ones is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley.
Yeah.
But if you actually read the book and not watch the movies, you might understand that book is more about humanity and outsiders than it is about monsters and, scary things. So, that I think is a classic kind of example of where the message kind of gets a bit confused with Gothic, or where I'm coming from when I think about Gothic. So,
and
I just wanted to say that in case anyone gets a thorn in their paw about my attitude towards it. So
I actually loved the description, not only because it seems very much fitting to the vibes that I have that I cannot give words to, but also this describes perfectly the movie that I chose. I think I got for you a film called The Man Who Laughs from 1928. So a silent movie.
Ooh.
Very much
old school.
I think, and it is also very much, it is eerie, not scary, and it is about humanity and outsiders, so it very much fits. And a fun fact, this movie is what the Batman villain the Joker was originally based on, at least visually.
Say.
Yeah. And I love this one. Awesome. Great one.
Yeah, very cool. I'm definitely keen for that.
Heck yes.
Well, and I think so we're going to reveal something here as well, because mine is a bit of an old film too. So, I think Gothic films were Gothic literature, I think was of interest to filmmakers in like the early 20th century, because mine is from 1940, and I specifically want you to watch the 1940 version of a film called Rebecca. Which is a very famously, if you look up any Gothic list, you'll find Rebecca's on there. It's an Alfred Hitchcock film.
Okay.
And it's based on the book called Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, who's a very famous author. I really like her as an author anyway. I haven't actually seen this film from start to finish. I've seen bits and pieces here and there, so I'm excited to watch it from start to finish.
All right.
But again, it's an old black and white. It's a Alfred Hitchcock, and yeah, it's very much in the Gothic vein without there really being any overt monster / scary whatever parts to it. So that's kind of part of why I picked it as well, because it was more in what I think of when I think of Gothic. So yeah, very keen to see what you think of that one.
I'm very much interested in seeing a Hitchcock film that not everybody talks about, you know what I mean? So this does seem very interesting to me too. Dope.
So yeah.
Hell yeah.
So a 1928 and a 1940. Hell yes.
Fuck yeah.
Getting classic with this shit.
Love that.
Yeah, I think though, for the sake of why I mentioned the 1940 version, I think there was another one made in 2020 with Armie Hammer and someone else, which I haven't seen as well. So I don't know if that one's any good or whatever, but I figure let's watch the Hitchcock because that's the one that everyone critically talks about, and that's the one I'm interested in watching anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm very down. Okay. All right, so now that we got these old farts out of the way for everybody to watch as well, I guess that brings us to the end of the episode. Yeah. Unless we have anything else to say, dear listeners, feel free to give us your thoughts on these subjects, or if you have any questions or other kinds of comments, leave them wherever you see a text thing to put in. Wow, I'm good with words. Thank you everybody for listening.
Just follow those instructions and you'll be right.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope you listen to us next time. See you around. Goodbye.
Adios, muchachos.